This is a TalkStation original podcast.
And welcome back to another episode of The Senior Moment with myself, Ryan Kelly, and Lynn Schultz from Carteret Landing. And Lynn, fill me in on who you have today as our star guest.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan. It's nice to be here. And this afternoon, we've got Jim Kraft with us. Jim is going to talk about a couple things. One is Jim's mother is actually a resident with Carteret Landing. So kind of the experience of that, thought process of that, and how that all came to be, and how your mom's doing. But then also, you are also a financial advisor. So that being said, we'd also like to get into just that process of making arrangements and how we're going to do this and for how long, and just kind of that aspect of it.
Talk to us a little bit about when you and your mom started talking about the potential of her moving into an assisted living, and how did that come up? How did those conversations go?
It's not an easy process, as I'm sure you're aware. It can be a fairly long evolution. After Dad passed away, Mom was living by herself. She was not getting out much. She had exhibited some memory loss, and we had to make the very hard decision about her driving, and so all of a sudden, her interaction diminished that much more. She just wasn't getting out. And she actually, one day, we were out on our way to the doctor's office, and she will not admit to this, but she told me that it was time. I mean, those were her exact words, which I have ingrained in my memory.
I bet you wish you had it ingrained on your phone so you could play it over and over again, right?
Yes. I do remember just very quickly the first time, because we'd already been out to visit Lynn and see the facility, and when we left, I asked Mom, I said, "What did you think of Carteret Landing?" She said, "It was very nice." And when everybody thinks of assisted living, or you use the term nursing home, whatever you want to use, all these images, not flattering images, pop in your head, and we did not get that obviously at Carteret Landing. But the one thing she said is like, Mom was very hesitant when I asked her what she thought of it, and I'm like, "Well, what's wrong, Mom?" She's like, "No, nothing." I said, "Is it that everybody there is old, Mom?" She's like, "Well, yeah." I'm like, "Well, yeah." But making that decision and having her buy-in, once we got to that point, made the situation a lot easier. And so getting over that hump, fortunately, y'all were in a position where from the time we let you know that she was ready to the time that a room became available was fairly short. So it wasn't like all of a sudden we're waiting, and next thing you know, one opens up. One of the issues we had, or that Mom thought we had, was she's like, "Well, I really want a kitchenette." I'm like, "Okay, Mom, let's get you in, and then when one comes available, we'll see about moving you to one." It's easier to do that than just wait. So that was really kind of the hurdle. It probably was easier in our case than it is in some, because we didn't have to sit there and go, "Mom, it's time." It's been it's not been without its issues and complications at times, obviously, but I have to say we've been very, very pleased with the care she's gotten. She's really settled in. She and her little table of ladies right there at the front of the dining room, riding herd over everybody. But I feel very comfortable that I can do what I need to do for her. And if for some reason I have to go out of town or I have something to do, that she is being taken care of and that she is being watched over. The fact of the matter is, my office is less than a quarter of a mile from the facility. So I may drive some of your staff nuts because I show up probably more than other folks, but that gives me a lot of comfort that if something comes up, it can be addressed, and it can be addressed quickly without a lot of hassle. I probably catch more grief from her than from than the issues with y'all. Actually, I know I do, but
no. Before moving in, did you and she ever have a conversation about her either having people come to her house and help take care of her there, or her moving in with you to have the care of you guys?
When my dad was sick, he had round-the-clock care for a month. It was extremely expensive. Now, to be fair, it was right in the middle of COVID, but it was extremely expensive, and frankly, the staff, there were some fairly difficult staffing issues where we didn't know if the person that was supposed to be there was going to be there. We didn't know what they were going to be doing, if they were going to be, frankly, if they're going to be sitting there on their daggone phone for the entire shift, or if they were going to be doing exactly what they needed to. So from that standpoint, we knew that was not going to be an option. That was more stressful, infinitely more stressful than what we've experienced with you folks. Mm-hmm. And thank you for mentioning that, Ryan, because I've had this conversation with clients that I'm never going to send mom or dad to an assisted living facility. We'll bring somebody in, or they'll move in with us and so forth. And really, I had a complete 180-degree change in my thinking about it, because seeing all sides of it, and frankly, talking about mom moving in with us, we've had my grandparents, my mother's parents, live with us at one point, and I've also seen other folks that have gone through that. I personally don't have the temperament for that, number one. Number two, I'm not going to put that on my wife. It's not her parents. That's not something that, if your parents have the ability to, and you have a good facility that they can go to, I found that this has really been the best situation for mom and for our family as a whole.
And I think it's also good because living with family is great, but I think the age difference, I talk to a lot of folks, and she is with folks that are her age, different values, goals than what you and your wife have. So to be with somebody that has gone through what they've gone through, losing a spouse, living through hard times, just to be able to have that camaraderie, I think makes such a difference. And
I will submit to you, Lynn, you're absolutely right. If your mom has really become, very, very social since she's been with you folks, I would submit to you that she would have deteriorated a lot more and a lot faster, if she had to be with us or bring folks in. And mom's infamous for this. Jim, I don't want to impose. Well, if she had been living with us, that would have been quite a bit more of an imposition, and I can see where that there would have been a lot more guilt on her part about her imposing on our life and so forth. So no, that was never really an option, and it's just you're absolutely right. It's been a great it has been a great alternative for us, and I can't imagine going any other direction.
Before actually moving in, how long or how far prior had you all started making plans as to what was going to be what would happen when the help was needed? Is that something that started when your dad got sick? Was it something that you all had been talking about before that even happened?
We broached it when Dad first got sick, and with Mom and Dad, under the assumption the Dad was going to get better and come home, and they may need to do something. Dad had mentioned to me several times prior to all that Mom's memory was fading. He noticed it. It was kind of known that something was going to have to be done. What and when, we really didn't know. And then when Dad passed away, he passed away in February of 22, and we moved Mom in January of 23, I think it was. So, it was about a year's time there.
And do you think that by having had those conversations, that it helped everybody be on the same page and maybe made it easier to make that transition?
Yes.
Because that's one of the things that we've encouraged people to do a lot on the show is to make sure that you're having those conversations early, and that it's not when somebody ends up in the hospital that you're suddenly starting to look and having the tough conversation. And so I'm glad to hear that that was something that you had already done, and that you do feel like it made it a little bit easier to make that transition and to make the decision.
One last thing. I have a client that she had always told her daughter, if you need to move me into somewhere, and then she got Lewy body dementia and fought it tooth and nail. You need to have those. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's go ahead. I think that's a good spot to take a break. And then when we come back, as Lynn mentioned, I'd really like to hear from your standpoint as a financial advisor and somebody who's lived through this, how to prepare for the financial component of moving into a community like ours. So we'll be back right after this break.
Hi, this is Lynn Schultz at Carteret Landing. We invite you to visit our beautiful assisted living community. Carteret Landing pairs exceptional, compassionate senior care with the stylings of a resort. Our beautifully appointed suites, common areas, and bright and engaging memory care neighborhood can provide you or your loved one with the quality living they deserve. Carteret Landing is in Morehead City, right behind the Friendly Market. Come by and see us today or call for your personal tour at 252-773-0980.
Hello, I'm Natalie Gibble, Hospice Care Consultant with Gentiva Hospice, and you're listening to Senior Moment.
And welcome back from our break. You're back with the Senior Moment. Myself, Ryan Kelly, and Lynn Schultz from Carteret Landing, as well as Jim Kraft. And so, Jim, as we mentioned before the break, you do financial advising, and one of the important parts of life is really preparing for how you're going to be able to afford when you are retired and eventually when you need the help that our seniors and the people that are living with us need. And it's not cheap. Tell us about your experience. Tell us about what your suggestions are to people to be able to make sure that they can be taken care of.
Absolutely, Ryan. And Mom's situation is one that I feel very fortunate for her that she's in. She's got Social Security. Dad was retired Navy, so she's got some pension from that. And to Dad's credit, I always used to like to say that he was tight with a buck. To my detriment, but
as a kid, that's not much fun.
Exactly.
My children will say the same thing. So.
Exactly. No matter how much money you throw at them, they always think there's more. But Mom is in a financial situation where paying for her care, fortunately, is not an issue. I have clients that you can see the light on the train coming at you down the track, and it's not a comforting situation. When we help clients plan, obviously you've got long-term care, which has somewhat of a checkered past. Some of the older policies, but some folks do have it, and obviously you got to see what that covers. One of the things we do when planning for clients is, we ask them, or when we're doing the plan, a lot of times they will have a substantial nest egg towards the end of their life, and they're like, I don't care about that. I don't need to leave a lot of money to my kids. And our answer is, no, you don't. But this is the money that will go to pay for your care later in life, should you need it. $1 million, $2 million, if you do it right, you can make, it can last you a good long time. But folks really don't understand exactly what the cost is. and then you got the folks that say, well, I want to get rid of everything, and so I can go, get Medicaid to pay for it. I'm like, yeah, but do you really want to live like that? And the answer is no, you don't. So the biggest thing is setting the expectations with clients, setting the realization that you may need some care at some point. Isn't it better off if you plan for it and you got the assets to cover yourself? And then when you can sit down and work through a plan with them and show them that you're going to be able to live out your life in a degree of comfort and have the care you need, it's very eye-opening, and it is very comforting. I mean, I've had situations where you can literally see them, the shoulders drop, they're more relaxed, because all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're going to be okay regardless.
So how, and this is jumping subjects a little bit, less about living in assisted living, and more about learning what you and your colleagues do. How early should somebody start seeing a financial advisor? Because a lot of people would say, hey, I've got, I don't know. Number one, they may say, I don't have any extra money. And especially with the inflation that we've been going through, that's a common thing that I hear. But also other people would say, well, I can only invest in my 401k. Why do I need a financial advisor for that? When should people start seeing financial advisors, and tell us a little more about what the process is that you go through when you meet with people?
The problem you run into is there's no one set answer. But I will say this, getting advice from a professional, regardless of your age, is a good thing to do. Because one thing I run into are folks that say, well, so-and-so told me this, and so-and-so told me that. Ronald Reagan made the comment about the opposition, when he said that, it's not that they don't know anything, it's that they know so much that's not so. And that's what you run into. Folks think they know a lot more because of where they've gotten the information. So if you know somebody in the business or get referred to somebody in the business, in my business, in the financial advisory business, call them. Say, I don't, if you're in your 20s or 30s, I don't have a lot right now, but can I get some guidance? Where should I be? What should I be doing? Take a look at my 401, would you take a look at my 401k? Those sorts of things. Establish a relationship, and the earlier you can, the better. And it may not be the person you wind up with, but get some good quality advice that that can help you start down the road. I was running some numbers with somebody the other day in their 20s, and I said, look, if you can accumulate $20,000 in an IRA or 401k by the time you're 30 and get an 8% rate of return, by the time you get 65, that's $250,000. If you don't put another dime away, and you're going to continue to put more money away, folks don't grasp that concept and the concept of compounding and what that can mean. So there's really no good answer. What you don't want to do is be in your mid to late 50s and go, oh, gee, I want to retire at some point. I've got $100,000 in my 401k. How am I going to catch up? Well, there's really only one way to do it. Either sock half or 3/4 of your paycheck away, or hope that if mom and dad don't have a lot, you've got your long lost uncle, Thurston Howell III, that's going to pass away and leave you a huge chunk of money, because in all likelihood, that's not going to happen. So the earlier you can start to plan, the better off you're going to be.
And whenever somebody visits our community, we point out to them, here are things that you're going to want to look for when you're looking at communities, and we encourage them to go and look at all the communities in the area. When somebody is speaking with a financial advisor, what are some things that you think would be important for them to be looking for in that person?
Two things, really: experience, and trust, and the trust factor whether it's because the person's been it's a referral, from somebody they've worked with forever for a long time, somebody that will shoot it to you straight. I read a book years ago, and the author of it, who was in our business, he was a legend in his own mind. But he said, our job is to tell our clients the unvarnished truth, not what is nice, not what they want to hear, but the truth. And sometimes that's very, very difficult. But folks need to hear it. What they don't want to do is hear some sunny, rosy picture, and then 10, 15, 20 years down the road, they run into a financial brick wall and go, well, this is what you told me, and this isn't what happened. Why? And I was trying to be nice, or this, that, the other. So, I would say those two things, and and a firm, and working with somebody that's got a firm behind them with significant resources to help, to help your advisor in the process.
I remember listening to a 401k audio call, and it was a person who called in and said that their monthly check was less than what it normally was, and it ended up being that the reason was because they didn't have any money left in their 401k. And so I love your advice of find somebody early and start planning early, because for somebody living in our community or any assisted living, it's a really expensive. If you haven't been saving, who's going to take care of you? Exactly.
My oldest son actually works for a competitor who will remain nameless. He'll sit there and say, and he's in their call center, and it's like, I taught all these people that, think they know what they're doing, and they don't. He's like, Dad, they don't have a clue. I'm like, yeah. I mean, people are good at what they're good at. And folks with assets a lot of times think that they are good at everything, if they've been successful, when they've been good at that one thing. Know what your core competency is, and what's not your core competency, go find some good qualified help. Who was it? He who represents himself as an attorney has a fool for a client.
On that note, we'll be calling it a day, which I actually think is a really good, because you do need to go and get professional assistance in trying to make sure that you're planning appropriately for your retirement, for being taken care of. And I want to say thank you for coming in today, talking about your mom's experience, your experience, and then also being able to offer the advice for those that will need the help in the future and how to be able to afford that. So thank you.
Y'all have been very good to Mom, and I'm glad to do it. And thank you for everything y'all are doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hi, this is Lynn Schultz at Carteret Landing. We invite you to visit our beautiful assisted living community. Carteret Landing pairs exceptional, compassionate senior care with the stylings of a resort. Our beautifully appointed suites, common areas, and bright and engaging memory care neighborhood can provide you or your loved one with the quality living they deserve. Carteret Landing is in Morehead City, right behind the Friendly Market. Come by and see us today or call for your personal tour at 252-773-0980.